This is for the free thinkers, the curious beings that swim upstream, who see possibilities, not problems, that learn from the past, live by the present, and create the future. This is the I Love Ugly audio show.
A lot of people asked for it, so now we've done it. In this episode, our digital director Will goes deep into a conversation with myself on the inner workings of how our clothing collections are put together, from the budgets and range planning all the way to the marketing. This gives you a deep insight into the depths we go to put each garment together, which you probably weren't aware of. From how we choose the fabrics, how we pick the trends, how we decide which garments to cut in the sampling stage, and how we bring the clothes to market. For all those in the industry or those that are interested in the behind the scenes of how a fashion brand works and runs, you'll find a lot of value and a lot of enjoyment from this episode. Enjoy.
What's up, V?
Yo, Will. How's it, bro?
I'm good. So take me through it. How does it all start? How far ahead does the process start when we're doing these collections and putting out these I Love Ugly clothes?
So we start 6 months ahead. So before the customer actually sees the product on the racks or on the website, we've started that process 6 months ago. In some cases, even longer. And then at any given time, there's multiple different collections that are at different stages of that 6 month cycle. So say, for example, we just finished June 2020 collection. So we wrapped that up a couple weeks ago. That was a slightly earlier because Chinese New Year is a little bit earlier this year. So basically, we get the budget. First and foremost, it begins with a budget based off our projected sales and also how our sales have been tracking leading up to that collection as well. And that basically dictates and drives how much money we can spend on a collection. So say, for example, we call it an OTB, which is an open to buy. For those, depending how advanced or how big the business is, I'd highly recommend it. If you're doing over $1 million, couple $1 million of revenue in your fashion company or any type of inventory company, and open to buy is highly recommended. I'd probably just Google it, what it means, but it basically dictates how much money you should spend on inventory based on the forecasted sales and also the sales which you have been doing. So say for example, June 2020, it might tell us to spend 250 grand of stock. So we get that number, and then our merchandise manager then kind of breaks it down into different categories. So say spend $50,000, these are just random numbers, $50,000 on pants, $50,000 on watches, $50,000 on accessories, right. $50,000 on hoods. And then from there, we've got the budgets, we've got how much is to be allocated towards each category. And then it's over to the design team. And that's where, we have our meetings with yourself, digital. We've got our merch planner, and we got our ops planner, and even our retail guys as well. And we basically discuss. We've usually got notes on the previous month from the previous year. So we had all our notes from June 2019 and 18. And this is where it was like, say for example, we were too light on hoodies, or we didn't have enough winter socks, or didn't have enough beanies, or we didn't have enough products that catered to the Northern Hemisphere. And we basically get all that information. This is before we even design anything. Yeah. We get all that information, the design team, get all that information, and it's like, okay, this is a starting block. Yeah. This is how we start. So we know what to do, what not to do, how much to spend, and how much to do for each particular category.
So do you find that the category trends change year to year? You're talking about June. Yeah. Is that June what we're putting out? Is that consistent through the years, or do you find that it changes over time?
I think it changes, and the dangerous thing, the good thing, the bittersweet thing about data is it tells you everything you need to know, but it doesn't actually tell you what you're missing. So say, for example, in June, it might say that hoodies were okay, didn't sell very well, but then if you look back, maybe we didn't have enough hoodies in stock. Yeah. So it's a little bit misleading. So that's why it's really important to make notes and have commentary around what happened from a year prior, because you're always going to forget. There's too many factors in your business. and you're going to lose track of what what worked, what didn't. But absolutely, man, trends change. Like, say for example, like this November, December, shorts for some reason didn't fire as early as they did last year. Why that is, I don't know. It could be, people would rather wear pants. It could be the temperatures are getting hot. It's getting hotter later. Like I don't. It could be the product was off. And that's why it's so important once you do a collection and release a collection. In our case, as soon as we release a collection the month after, we've got all the data, we've got all the fresh reasons why things worked, why didn't work, and just record that. So that way you've almost got like a Bible to reflect on the previous, the next year, the following season. So yeah, to answer your question, it's always changing. It's always tweaking, pulling strings, adjusting.
Because you can only know to an extent, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a chunk of it that's guesswork, that you're predicting what the customer is going to like.
For sure, man, definitely. Well, in our business, we've got our core range, which probably makes up about 70% of our sales. So that's just all our black basic pants and hoodies and tees and this and that. That stuff's cool, but it doesn't get people excited.
Yeah.
And it's a bit, especially in our industry, where I'd say we are a fashion company, and fashion means that you have to innovate and do things differently. You have to be relevant. You have to see in the foreseeable future about what's going to be trending, colors and shapes and sizes. And that's the element of like the risk and the unknown, and keeps things exciting. And that's also what can absolutely explode the company into a different stratosphere. But at the same time, it can also screw you up if you get the balance incorrect, if you do way too much out there buzzy stuff and not enough simple core bread and butter stuff.
Definitely. So how do you fight that balance between creating kind of the simple stuff that the customers like and they're gonna like, and then creating like that wild piece that's like pushing the boundary, and you're like using more of your intuition and gut feeling? Like how do you balance those two?
I think like having a set of design principles and rules. And also over the time, like I've been designing now for over 11 years, and I kind of know within me what works, what doesn't. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect every time. And that's why we have people like, we have an open, transparent policy within the company. And if I think it's personally awesome, dope, and everyone else thinks it's whack, the jury has spoken. I just got to go with it and swallow my pride and just can the idea and push harder and progress and try to do something. But it's a real balancing act. But I think so long as you've got that set of rules about, things like what our formula is. Say for example, for us, it's like we know that if we do something in the middle ground where we're trying to push the boundaries and do something real out there, whack, innovative, if we're not pushing the boundaries enough, it actually falls short. Like it's not crazy enough. So for us, if we're gonna go crazy, go crazy.
Go fully crazy.
Yeah, if you're gonna go clean, go clean. Yeah. The middle ground for us doesn't really work, and that's just something which I've learned over time. But man, who knows? Like soon that might even change again. You just got to be adaptive. You got to constantly have those tough conversations and constantly be looking at the data and asking the right questions. You're gonna get the right answers based off asking the right questions. If you ask yourself, "Oh, why doesn't this work?" That's a stupid question.
Absolutely.
You gotta ask yourself. You gotta ask even asking the customers. It's like
I think that's a really important part you can't overlook, is having like a direct, clear, open communication with the customer about the garments as well.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Because their feedback is just so important.
So valuable, man. And they know it pretty clearly. Yeah. Whereas for us, is like we have a tendency, to overcomplicate it. Yeah. And I think just straight down the pipeline, asking them why, I'll give you the answer, man. But sometimes at the same time, I don't know. Henry Ford says if he asked what they wanted, they would ask for a faster horse. Yeah. And that there's a lot of truth to that as well. So, and that's where the magic of company culture and being entrepreneurs and designers comes into play, because you create things in people's lives that they didn't even know they wanted or needed or existed.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was massive about that.
Steve Jobs was massive. But what Steve Jobs also did is he started with what the customer wanted and worked backwards. And I think that's such a smart way of looking at it, you know what I mean? Because the thing is like if you just create what you want, I know you and me have these conversations. Like I'll present a range or show you a range, and you'll be like, not into that. But I'm like, bro, are you not into it?
Yeah.
Or is that your personal taste, or do you think the customer's not into it? And that's like a real important distinction. And we always
it's really hard balance.
very hard balance, definitely, especially as a designer, But I've really learned to really kind of separate myself from it now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so good. We can be ruthlessly honest, and no one's going to be offended, which is great. And we can apply that to all aspects of the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so once the merchandise planner has everything sorted, they've got the budget, this is kind of the silhouettes that we need for this month and everything. Obviously, it flows into the design process from there. And so you've been designing for 11 years, you said. What's your method for that? Where do you draw your inspiration? Has it changed over time, or do you have a set design process of how you work?
That's a good question, bro. Sometimes it just really flows out almost effortlessly, and sometimes it's hard. And but in terms of to answer it, so I basically get as much information as I can. So it's like, okay, these are my parameters. Because the thing is if I just go off and try to get inspired, I'm basically I'm just working aimlessly. There's like there may need to be like a new puffer jacket or jacket. I'm inspired by a puffer jacket or a jacket, but there may be no need for that in the particular collection. So I basically get all the information, and then I just go off on my rant. I do my research, and I just try to get inspired. And I do that. I go to the library on Tumblr. I'm researching, looking at other brands, go to other shops, just try to just kind of get the buzz going. But also, more often than not, what's really kind of got me inspired nowadays is actually getting all the team's inspiration, because that's certain things that I'm not looking at, so it's new to me. So it just sparks an idea in my mind, and honestly, it can take. What's that saying? It just takes like a spark to create a bushfire, and that's the same thing for creativity as well. One spark, one new fresh idea can spark a whole new collection. But there's no like set formula. Sometimes I try to force it. Sometimes I try to work it. Sometimes I come to work 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning to get into it, but I'm just not feeling it, man. I can't feel it.
So what do you do? What do you do in those times when you're not feeling it?
What I try to do is I just try to like work for creative, just wake up the creative muscle. So I'll probably do something else creative. Whether it be like write articles or just something to do with like interior design or something completely different. And then once I'm kind of woken up, I then start applying it into garments. But and at the same time, I just try to chip away at it as opposed to doing it all in one session, because it's exhausting. You can spend 8 hours in a day designing and only do one t-shirt or one jacket. But that one jacket can spark the flow and the vibe and the ideas for the full collection. So it's no real set piece. There is deadlines that you need to meet. And I think deadlines are good because they put the pressure on you. And then also the fact that we're a small team, and I'm still doing, now I'm 100% designing again, which I haven't really done on years, on top of my other day-to-day roles of the company and stuff. That's a lot of pressure as well, but I just learn to get used to it and deal with it. And
how would you say your design process has changed since a decade ago?
Way more disciplined, because I don't have the luxury of time.
Right.
A decade ago, I could run my own timelines. Just if I didn't meet the 11th of December, doesn't matter. There's no backlog, But now we've got factories that are reliant on our orders every single month coming in, but they've also got their own schedules, and we've got our timelines. And production has to get things on sea freight rather than air freight, because the thing is, if we air freight 5,000 pieces, that's a huge bill. And that's going to erode your margin. And then she's driven off, her KPIs are margin driven. So it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like the repercussions of being late now, when you're playing at a professional level, can no longer be. And I think that's the difference between now and previously, is now we've got a whole business that's reliant on running to a strict timeline. And if we don't, it's just a domino effect, Ranges are late. Yourself, you've got your targets to meet for the online sales, and if it's running a week late, man, you've got a week of sales to catch up on. And our business is all based off its products, man. Like,
absolutely.
People people shop with people are engaged with I Love Ugly because of the clothes we make, and people want newness all the time. They want innovation, but at the same time they want consistency and the same thing, and they want the same t-shirt always in stock. And so it's a real kind of balancing act. But yeah,
and
luxuries.
So we put out a collection every month, and obviously that's a lot different to other fashion brands and companies. Does that add? Obviously, that adds a whole lot more pressure.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it quarterly, seasonally, doing it every month. What was the main reason behind chopping it up like that? And do you think you'd ever go back to more of a seasonal thing?
I don't think we'd go back to a seasonal thing, like say 4 collections a year, because it
would be easier though, right? Like
it would be easier, absolutely. But at the same time, I think our whole business model and financial model and everything is built off monthly collections. And even say for October, our anniversary collection, we did, what was it?
10 releases,
10 releases in 20 days. So I release every 2 days, but some of these releases consisted of 4 pieces.
That was insane.
So it was insane. And the thing is like, people, we've almost trained now our customer to know that I Love Ugly releases sporadically.
Yeah, we've trained them well.
Yeah, we've trained them well, and we focus on. But I think going back to the other way, we've tried to go back to that in the past, like, which is more of a traditional distribution model where you do 4 collections a year, you're super in advance, say 12 months in advance, and then they buy it all, it's all consolidated, this and that. And yeah, I personally think it's the old model.
Allows you to move very fast as well.
As well, sorry?
It allows you to move very fast to change, if you need to change things out.
Like the regular collections? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, man. It gives you so much flexibility, and you can do exciting things. It's awesome for sales as opposed to getting that huge spikiness. Because the thing is like nowadays people see a collection, you get these brands releasing, and I'm not saying our way is the best way or the only way, but you get brands releasing 100-piece collections, and people are sick of it after a week or 2.
Yeah.
But then that's them for the next 4 months. That's all they got to do. And I feel it's a pretty risky way to run your business, you know?
Yeah.
You see most companies now that it's just all about newness. You got like chocolate companies, beverage companies, everything. They're releasing collabs, new flavors, and they're doing it regularly. And I think you need to do that. And then for us to also fill the gaps, so we're not just pushing product for the sake of it. That's why we do podcasts and other things as well.
Add value in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And so, say you've done the design process, you've got the first draft done. Yeah. What happens there?
First design process, draft done. I then send it to ops, to yourself, and to Melissa in production. And what we're getting here is we're getting a full 360 point of view from everybody. Everyone's got different tastes, and everybody's going to be looking at the collections with a different lens. In your case, you're going to be looking at, okay, what's going to drive the most based off data, what's going to drive the most hype or the most sales or interest or shareability. And then for the operations, it's like real, what's the most commercially viable thing for the average Joe, you know? And then you got myself, it's like what's pushing the most creative boundaries and like really growing the brand and expanding the brand. And then you got the production girl, and she's just making sure we've got covering all bases for categories. So it's like a real good way to get a full holistic view of the collections. And after that first draft, you pretty quickly start to see the gaps, or where you're too heavy or too light in certain things. And once that, I basically make everybody give their comments, take on the comments, no offense taken, and then back to the drawing board and do the draft 2. Usually we repeat that process probably 2 or 3 times. 2, 3, some cases 4 times. And then at that point, once that's done, we're ready to turn the collection into individual spec sheets and start getting into the sampling process.
So tell me a little bit about that. So you've got the collection, and then you're working with production.
Yeah.
And so you have to go through every spec and every garment.
Every single garment, every detail, every button, every zip, everything is specified.
And how long does that take?
It takes it's hours. So you got hours, could be 50
Could be a couple of days.
50
even.
plus hours to do the collection and all the detailing, all the artwork and all the trims associated with it. You then give it to production. A lot of magic happens in the process as well.
Yeah.
So her and me is I get it to a point where I've got like an overview of what the garments to look like, and then when I'm handing it over to her and explaining it, she's basically recording all the information on the spec sheet, and then we're vibing and bouncing a lot of ideas. Hey, what about this? What about that? And that's when.
So is that where you find the actual fabrics itself? So
yeah. And at that point, so we're doing the detail handover, the zips, the artwork, the little details, the pips, the labels, and we do the fabric choice as well. Yeah. And that's where, we've got, in the back of our studio, we've got, 10,000 fabric swatches. And a lot of that's hand sourced by myself in production.
And it's not enough.
In China, it's not enough. Like we've run out. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And so we go through all that, and you pick fabrics, and you get, you envisage it in your mind, and it comes back, and it's just completely off. And that's part of the game as well, But yeah, that's a very laborious process. And also something to mention as well is majority of our fabrics, especially in our knits and stuff, are knitted from scratch. So we've got a Pantone book. We're picking all the different colors we want. Sometimes we're lab dipping, which means sampling, 10 to 20 different colors.
Right.
We get all those dips back. They're like a little 2x2 centimeter or 1x1 inch square with the colors on it. And these are actual color lab dips on fabric, and we've got an archive.
So it's like you're picking a one color, and then they're giving you 10, 20 variations of that exact color.
That color, or we've got a whole bunch of colors, and they're giving variations of that. And we're getting swatches, samples of the fabric, which we're knitting from scratch. Yeah. So the whole process for majority of our garments are knitted from scratch. So we're a straight, not seed to sew, but fabric, raw fabric, grade, color, to full finished garment, and that's all part of the process.
Yeah, it sounds like there's actually a ton of detail that goes on.
There's a ton of detail, and I think, I take it for granted, people take it for granted. Maybe we need to do a better job of explaining it. Not all companies do this, but for us, consistency and quality is a real important value of ours. Yeah, we want to make it so people can come back in 2 years, 3 years' time, and get a pair of our Zesty Smart Pants, and it's exactly the same fabric, zips, buttons, trims, everything. And the only way to do that is to knit it from scratch, as opposed to buying market fabrics, stock fabrics.
And so when, is that the same point when you'll put, like, obviously in I Love Ugly products, all throughout the history, there's been these quirky little details that are hidden in all the different garments. Yeah. At what point do you make them, and how do you come up with them? What's the reason for them? Like, why do you see that's important? Because it's obviously been important enough to consistently do it for a decade.
For sure. Well, I think one of the main reasons is just point of difference, and it turns it from just a regular jacket or a regular t-shirt or shirt into something a little bit special and something a little bit more intimate. We've got like a hidden message or a detail in a garment that people, when you're wearing it, other people can't see it, but you see it, and it just makes it that much more special. That's why we do that. We actually need to be doing more of that. We've spoken about this, but in terms of like when that happens, it happens in different stages, but the trick is to try get as much detail and thought and design into the garment once you hand it over, because doing it later in the process, once you're in the sampling stage, it can just slow things down. And as I said, we're pretty tight on our timeline, so the more you can think about it and talk about it and discuss before you hand it over, the better. Obviously, sometimes there's some last minute changes to improve a garment, but yeah, I'm really trying to think about that. I'm also trying to get all like the rest of the team to have that whole detail lens on. It's almost like the next step of a process. Once we design our collections and it's all together, it's almost like we want to put it on a rack and be like, hey, where's the details? Where's the specialness? Where's the X factor in these garments? What makes this black jacket different from the black jacket from that other so-and-so brand? So that's something real important to us, and something that people have really grown to love about the brand, just those quirks and details. We always have that quote, the details aren't the details of the design. Absolutely. And I think that still rings true to this day, and it's a real core design principle of I Love Ugly.
Cool. You've handed it over, you've given all the specs, all the details of the garments to production. And then what's her role with all of that information from there?
It's basically conversing with factories. So basically,
So they have to just create the document, official
yeah.
document
So
for
it's
every
like
piece.
a very detailed spec sheet with every inch and stitch detail and all the information in order to get the garment, the first sample, as accurate as possible.
Right.
We're at that point now where we've developed really good long-term relationships with our factories, so they kind of know our level of
Yeah.
taste and also what we would accept and not accept. So it's pretty good, but you're always going to get stuff that just fails, flops
Yeah.
crazily, and it's like, how the hell,
How often
how
would
did
you,
they get that result, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're
Which
like stressing,
it's
you know?
pretty entertaining when it does happen.
Yeah, it's like, what the?
How often would you design a garment, gets handed over, you get the first sample, how often would you just completely cut that product? And be like, nah, not feeling it.
Sometimes you want to, but I can see what it should be,
Yeah.
and the changes are pretty good. And that's just but you know what the changes need to be made to make it pretty good.
Yeah.
But from time to time, if you're in the second or third and it's still a dog, you got to call it. You got to
Yeah.
make that shot. You got to make that call, because otherwise it's like, man, if you don't make that call now, yeah, it's going to cost you sampling fees, and it's going to cost you triple. You know, it's going to what you'd retail for 130, you have to pay $250 because of a sampling, but it's far cheaper than producing something subpar. And you've
Absolutely.
ordered 200 of them and they can't sell. So it's real good at making those decisions and making those cuts. But we'll always get, especially now where we're really trying to push boundaries, we're always going to get garments that are just completely off,
Yeah.
completely shit. And you get stuff that's just like completely blows you away, way better than you expected as well. And that's all part of the game, eh? Like you can see it can look super dope on a Illustrator file, Adobe Illustrator, and then when you kind of get in real life, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of the game, eh? But also factories play such a vital part. You know, their capabilities, their quality, their standards,
Yeah.
their understanding of what your standards are. It's absolutely pivotal.
And so just on the factories, obviously you've got really good relationships with
Yeah.
the factories we have now.
Yeah.
How long did it take to find the factories that you could create that long term?
Yes.
Did you go through like a bunch of trash ones? or-
Yeah, man. Trash, lost heaps of money, heaps of trash products that we just literally had to dump. Like not dump, but as in like sell for
Yeah.
$5, you know, just to get rid of it, or just suck it up and
Just
just
eat it,
store
yeah.
it, eat it, you know. But yeah, factories are like any relationship; they take time. It's a lot of investment of your time, a lot of investment of money. I've been to China, you know, dozens of times, spent a lot of money, like, you know, just with them, and just trying to get to know them as people, and
Yeah.
like, which sounds something like you'd never think about it, but it's so important, because if they believe in your vision and your brand and you as a
Absolutely.
business owner, that's going to really shine in the product which they make. But we've had a lot of dog factories over the years, and you know, ones that you just pick up on Alibaba randomly, and they quote you on a price that's, you know, 50% cheaper than your previous.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's where you can get in trouble if you're solely driven. Like even recently, you know, we got
That's the danger on price.
yeah, we put our pants. A few factories wanted to quote our pants, and they came back like in some cases $8 cheaper than we're currently doing. We're like, this doesn't sit right. We've got this relationship with this current factory that we've used for 8 years.
Yeah.
Their quality is phenomenal. Why do we want to change that? Yeah, you could save $8 and probably.
And it's pretty common that a factory would say, yeah, we can give you this way better
course.
rate just to get you in the door.
get you in the door. Yeah. So, and that's, you know, and that just comes with it as well, knowing that
Absolutely.
different strategies. So, has to be a pretty compelling reason now, besides just price to switch.
So the factories, they've got all the spec sheets for all the garments you've got for a specific collection.
Yeah.
How long till you get the first sample?
Generally, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the complications. If we're doing like custom artwork and embroidery and digital printing and stuff, usually we'll get a strike off, which is like not in a final garment. It's just like a piece of fabric with a print on it.
Yep.
And then while they're doing that, they're sampling the silhouette. And once we approve the strike off and the silhouette, which is usually in different fabrics, not in your finished fabric, they just amalgamate it together. And that's usually the second sample, called a PP, pre-production sample 2. And then, but yeah, so the first sample usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks. Generally after that, it can take up to 1 to 2 weeks for improvements after that, or the adjustments. And then the process after that's pretty seamless. And then we get so that happens a couple of times. Some cases, like especially for our core products or things that we've been doing for years, and we just change the color, or just sometimes it'll just be a straight pre-production. We'll just get the fabric, which we approve, and that's it. They go for it. Yeah.
We get a ton with the amount of, because you've got collections every month and the amount of products that are in a collection, we get a ton of samples coming through.
Yeah.
What's that process like when you're opening it up?
It's as
you know, it could be scary, it could be amazing.
Yeah, nah, it's my favorite part of the job.
It is. It's like Christmas almost.
Yeah,
every day.
It is. I saw a package when I left to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I went open after.
I wanted to rip into it, see what it is. It's my favorite part of the job, to be honest.
Seeing it come to life.
Yeah, definitely. I think now, because we've got our process and our factories dialed down, we all play our factories to their strengths. So I know that if I'm going to do denim, or if I'm going to do a jacket with a particular factory, that it's going to come back and it's going to look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And especially when we've pushed boundaries and done something innovative, it's like a pretty awesome feeling.
Yeah, it's
but
cool
we know
experience.
straight away, right, when something's looking super dope, we're all hyped. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And we just can't wait to bring it forward. But we have to wait 6 months usually. Yeah.
And so at what point are you starting to do, so we use pretty much the pre-shipping samples, we would use them for all the photography.
Yep.
And so at what point, so say all the product arrives.
Yeah.
What's the process from there?
So we basically, with the pre-production samples, which is the sample they use before it goes into bulk production.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we use to do all the photo shoots, so the e-com, the website photos, and we do that. And usually they're 100%, some cases are not, but sometimes we have to peg it or Photoshop it or whatever afterwards in the post-production. But more often than not, it's pretty good. And then, so we do all our website imagery, we do all our campaign imagery. By the time we do that, the goods are on a boat and they arrive into the warehouse.
So you'll do all the e-com images in a studio, clean background.
Yeah, and we've used the same photographer now for 5-6 years.
And then we will get it all clear cut, all the images clear cut.
Yeah.
The digital team will prep all the images for the website. And
write the descriptions.
All of that information, the size charts.
Yeah, upload it onto
At what
Shopify.
point do we do the editorial?
We pretty much do it same day or a day after we do the e-com, the website photos, just because we're in that flow.
Yeah.
So we kind of like compile it all and just do it, because it takes up a lot of time, and since you're in that campaign photography state of mind, frame of mind, it's best to just knock it off all in one go.
And it's really easy to just photograph a lot of the collection in a studio where it looks really clean and easy, but then obviously if you keep doing that, everything starts to look very similar. And so that editorial, the role that editorial shoot plays is very important.
Yes.
And how do you go about that, choosing a theme for that, the environment, the models?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think we it all kind of comes to planning. Obviously, if you do like an outdoor themed editorial every month, that can be the same problem as just
doing it in
the studio every month. So what we do is we kind of alternate it. So we try to do about four bigger, larger campaigns every year. And in our campaigns, what we're trying to do is convey the lifestyle about who the I Love Ugly person is and what they believe in and this and that. Say, for example, the previous one we did last month, we just did that at my house. We carefully curated all the books the guys were reading, like all the artwork, all the decor, all the garments, and we actually got 2 different models to represent different types of demographics who shop with us. So we got the older guy, but essentially what we're trying to do is like the clothing itself is we try to make people feel really good. In the campaigns, we try to make it super aspirational. So when people wear our clothes and engage with our brand, they feel inspired. They feel like they've hit a level of achievement. So we try to do those types of campaigns 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And then we also do campaigns that are just a little bit more conceptual, arty, not too overthought. The main primary focus is the clothing. Let's say, for example, we shot January last week, January collection.
Yeah.
We didn't do a campaign. We just did like an editorial in the studio. We changed the background. We made it kind of fresh, kind of icy, cool gray kind of colors, and there's no real crazy theme behind it. Didn't overthink it. We just did something kind of cool and things like that. So
do you ever get a collection where you've photographed it and you're like, shit, I don't know if this is gonna fire?
I haven't had
obviously
that.
the amount of collections that you've put out.
Yeah.
Do you have a pretty good gut feeling of how well a collection's gonna go?
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, you never know exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ones that you think
Sometimes
fire,
we get
flop,
a random product that just goes bananas.
and sometimes you get a product that we all love and bet the house on, and it just
Yeah.
flops. But I think since like a few years ago, I really separated myself from the design process.
Yeah.
I was more just creative
which is
directing.
hugely important.
Yeah, hugely important. And I felt I lost, I almost like lost that connection with the product. So I was coming and doing editorials. I was like, fuck, this almost doesn't even feel like I Love Ugly.
Yeah.
But now, since I'm fully part of that process from plan to designing to the actual editorials, I kind of know the products like the back of my hand, and I've really familiarized myself throughout the whole process. But yeah, sometimes you get stuff and you're like, oof. But to be honest, it's happened less now because of our whole auditing transparency process and the planning
Absolutely.
has helped mitigate a lot of, I believe, a lot of mistakes, and that's why we've grown as a result of it.
How important are obviously the systems when you've got collections happening every month? You essentially each month you have a different collection in 6 different stages, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And so how important are building the systems around that, and how long did it take to actually build them and refine them and get them to a level where you're like, okay, we can do this collection every single month now with ease?
It took probably, well, at any given stage we had a system, like we had to.
Yeah.
But I feel
Are you
now,
constantly trying to improve it?
constantly, man, like you know this better than anyone. We're constantly looking at ways of improving, not just in our product but everything. But the system is like, if you don't have a system, you're running around like a headless chicken. When you're running around like a headless chicken, you're basically compromising quality, because your lack of organization means you can spend less time on doing something, and when you spend less time on doing something, it's not going to be as good as it could be. So I think like a system is the backbone to the business, and I think fashion is so complicated, multifaceted, just so many different elements. You need it like any business, right? You need to have a well-oiled machine and an amazing system, because the thing is like, by creating a system, it's almost like you're creating a playground to be creative and create the best work. I think for us is like, our system's pretty, like, I'd say it's pretty dialed. It could always be better, and probably like
it can always be better.
Always be better. But in saying that, it's December, busiest time of the year. Sales are twice as much as they are previous months, and we're all pretty chilled out.
Yeah.
And we've got everything in the pipe. We've got everything in the sampling up until June 2020.
Yeah.
And like, we're processing double, triple, 4 times more orders than we usually would, and we're not running around. And I think that's testament to our systems being strong. But at the same time as well, you can have great systems, but if you lack communication in the team, that system can fail, because at the end of the day, it's human beings that run that system. So for us, obviously communication, having great, clear goals and objectives about why we're doing things, and if anything's going to go like at the same time as well, when you got humans handling things, there's going to be errors.
There's always going to be error.
Yeah, so we're just like, and things can be delayed, factories can screw things up, like, freighting companies can be backed up. Like, a lot of things can go wrong, and they do go wrong, but it's almost creating a system to be able to handle that and withstand that, and being on your toes constantly. Like, we're constantly improvising things and doing like our watches, for example, that was a month late, and it's like we had already projected and planned for the watches to come at a certain date, and they didn't. There's a gap, and it's like, okay, how do you deal with that? You need to have a system in place with that. So, but if you didn't have a system, it just would have come whenever. So
absolutely,
yeah. But
how do you, because we're offering to a global audience, obviously you've simultaneously got different hemispheres wanting different types of clothing.
Yeah.
How do you balance that in the design process, catering for Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, I think what we do is there's obviously peak times in different seasons. So say for example, November is a real peak time for the Southern Hemisphere where it gets really hot. And it's also a very gift buying season. So you're getting a lot of purchases under $100 because you got mums buying for their sons. But at the same time, it goes very cold in the Northern Hemisphere as well. So we cater to that. We make sure that we've got certain amounts of jackets and we've got a ton of shorts for the Southern Hemisphere. And that's just, once again, it's just all part of a merch planning. So it's nothing really different. We just know that, there's going to be 4 times a year where the seasons majorly change, and we're just going to make sure that we're offering products to cater to those core seasons. Obviously, since we've got New Zealand retail stores, people are more inclined to purchase more expensive things in retail stores because they can try it on. So in our New Zealand, Australia, Southern Hemisphere winters, we have a deeper jacket outerwear offering because people come in and not afraid to spend $300-400 on a jacket because they can try it on. Whereas a US customer buying a jacket $300-400 online, there's a lot of risk in that, They have to pay taxes, import duties. There's also the possibility of it not fitting and then needing to send it back. So we just cater we just adjust our jacket ordering for that season to be a little bit less because they buy less jackets, just because it's a bit more risky. So, but yeah, once again, it's just planning and experience and just knowing certain things. So, but it is definitely a challenge.
So we've released the collection to the customers. It's on the racks in the stores. It's online, on the website.
Yeah.
Then what's next after that?
So it's basically launching it. So creating the pre-hype, launching it to market, giving it to our customers, and making sales. So it's like sales hat is on. So obviously this is something where you're deeply involved. Like we need to plan like everything to a T. So we use like apps like Trello, which are amazing ways and Slack to communicate and create flows of what we're doing. But it's even a question for you, bro. It's like we kind of launch it. It's like you've got now it's a matter of distribution, right?
Yeah.
All the clothes have been designed, they've been made. You've got all the campaign imagery, and now what do you do? Obviously, I'm still deeply involved in this process, but it's good hearing it from you.
So what we would do typically, say we get a collection of 10, 15 different items, we would, in the background on the website, we have a lot of different targeting pools. And so if a customer goes on and looks at a certain hoodie, he will then be tagged with a certain hoodie interest. And then so whenever a new product will come out, if you're interested in, so say the Slim Kobe pant, if you've been looking at them or if you've bought them, then, and we put out a new Slim Kobe, you're going to be sent the new Slim Kobe's because we know that you're interested in them. And then so there's a lot of different ad strategies that we have. So there's also pushing the collection as a whole. So you'll be just pushing all of the product and just letting everybody on our list know that, yep, we've got a new collection rolling. And so we'll also be sending out mailers, which is really, really big and really important for us. That's kind of always been like a lifeblood of a e-commerce business, is your email list. And the reason why they're so important is because you control them. If you're on, say, a platform like Facebook or Instagram, then you're at the mercy of their platform. But with the email list, you've always got those emails and you can move them around whenever you want. And so that always generates a massive amount of our traffic and getting people to the site. And then on top of the ad strategy, you've got basic retargeting. If people are looking at the product, they're going to be sent new product or complementary product, or if they haven't checked out, different things like that. And then we'll do things like desktop notification. Like if you go to our website on a fresh browser, it'll say I Love Ugly wants to send you a notification. And so when we release a new collection, you're on your little desktop, you'll get a notification being like, Isle of Ugly's released their new collection. And
Because how many people do we have on that now?
So we did that about 6 months ago. I think it's around 10,000.
Wow.
We got about 10,000 different people.
Yeah.
And so there's constantly these new different ways of talking to
Engaging,
your customer.
For sure.
But they all have different levels of importance,
Yeah.
and you've got to treat them all
Separate and different.
separate and really, really different, because the way a customer interacts on a certain platform can be completely different to another.
Yeah.
And so say SMS, so text marketing is becoming pretty good at the moment, because, you know, if you're getting a text message, you know, the open
You ain't
rate
gonna miss
rate on that
Yeah.
is, you know,
199%.
over 95%.
Yeah.
But then it's also way more personable,
Yeah.
because they're not used to getting text
For sure.
messages from businesses.
It can be quite invasive as well.
Absolutely. And so if you're sending too many text messages, people are going to get pissed off a lot
sure.
faster than in an inbox, because in the email inbox, people have been getting, you know, there's a dedicated spam folder
for
in
sure.
your inbox.
And it's just socially accepted.
Absolutely. And so people, you know, like people will have an email inbox that has 10,000
Yeah.
unread emails, because that's just where they get sent all their junk.
sure.
And so email is really important, and SMS texting has become quite important.
Yeah.
Depending on the country that they're in, it can be a lot more expensive. So in the US, the rates are really, really well,
Yeah.
but in New Zealand, it's super duper expensive because we're located.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of different platforms like that, ad spend on different platforms, the mailer, desktop notification, SMS, getting into all of those things. That's probably those are our key different.
So pretty much while we're doing this, developing our collections and bringing it to market, we're basically hustling on the side,
Absolutely.
getting just growing these different lists, right?
Yeah.
So that way, when we're ready to roll with a collection, that list the goal is for the list to have grown and new people to come through and be presented products.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because pretty much no matter what way a customer interacts with you, you'll see this when you go on any good website. You can tell how good their marketing team is if you're seeing them pretty soon after that you just left their website.
Yeah.
And obviously with the targeting these days on advertising platforms, it's pretty somewhat invasive.
Yeah.
But just most of it's pretty legal. So it's just really, really accurate.
Yeah, for sure.
And really, really strong. And so you can, as I said, you can know the strength of a marketing team in a business when you keep seeing them everywhere.
And how much is it, because I know we're real big on that as well, is like, how much is too much? Because obviously right now we're in December, so we're heavily doing transactional marketing, but it's a heavily transactional part of the year. But how much, obviously you can't do, or for us anyway, we know we can't do that too much, but what's the balance? Like I know the answer to this, but it'll be interesting for you. What's the balance between giving value-based brand kind of content and then also actually just telling them, okay, new collection, new pants, new colors, blah,
I think
blah, blah.
it comes down to how the brand was built, right? Like you can get some businesses out there that have purely been built off social advertising, you know, and that's just their bread and butter. They're a business that they don't have the time, the resources to build these massive campaigns, to build these videos, to build content. So to get their product out there, they just have to slam people with their product. But the problem with that is when the relationship is purely built off just product. If somebody can offer a similar product for a better price, there's no
jump ship.
There's no real loyalty there.
Yeah.
And so the importance of doing non-product content is, for us anyway, is absolutely massive, because you want to be engaging with your customer beyond just the product. Like that's one of our biggest questions that we ask in our digital marketing team, is how we constantly engaging with our customer without even talking about product, and and in that, how are we adding as much value to their life as absolute possible? And then the more we do that, and so that drives, like you'll notice that in a lot of our marketing is we'll be pushing this content that has nothing to do with clothing. And the reason for that is because if we can continue to engage with these people, we're building a relationship. You know, if somebody's just trying to sell you stuff all the time, you're not building a very good relationship.
That's why
with them.
like everybody shuts the door on those salesmen that turn up on your front door.
Because they're only there for your money anyway.
For sure.
But if we're constantly trying to add value, then people are more willing to stick with us in hard times. They're more willing to spend their money with us, even if our items could be more expensive than another brand, because they have this loyalty to us. And then you know, all the articles that we put out, the podcasts that we put out, book recommendations, all these different things. If we can make an impact on somebody's life, you know, if we can recommend a book to a customer and then that book ends up changing their life, that's absurd. You know, that's a customer for life. They're going to be like,
and then when they need a t-shirt or a hoodie,
when they need a blank, when they need like an easy white t-shirt, they're going to buy I Love Ugly one because they just want to rip that brand.
So just based on that word value, it's kind of like a bit of a buzzword. How does and I might be deviating a little bit here, but it's kind of interesting anyway. How does a brand discover what their value is?
Yeah, I guess it's all about. So a lot of this, probably one of the biggest people that promote this type of marketing, this value-based marketing, is Gary Vee. And so he literally came out with a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And so that basically just means give value, give value, give value, give value, and then ask them to buy. And so value-based marketing can be really weird. You can see some companies that are just, you know, completely, they've understood the concept, but they're just giving value that doesn't really relate to their actual brand. And so for us, we do portray more of a lifestyle brand, and within that, it is this push for personal development, for self-improvement. And so that concept itself has a lot of different arms to it below it. And so we can offer, you know, so many different things that are still within that realm. And obviously it's different for every single business, but that's kind of this, you know, this area that we've seen a ton of potential of the ways we can add value to our customer. And so the different things like the articles, as we talked about, the podcast, all these different things, it's like...
And even our campaigns, it's like, live like this.
Absolutely.
Live with a tidy space that you have pride in.
Absolutely. And so that recent campaign that you talked about earlier in November that we've used for November, December. So the people listening to this podcast, if you go back through our Instagram, you'll be able to see this kind of emphasis on, over November, December, this emphasis on not just showing cool clothes, because anybody can show cool clothes, but it's what goes beyond that. You know, if you can see yourself in that environment, you know, reading that book, you know, working on yourself, making those beats, doing all these different tasks, you're like, I can see myself doing that. And it just goes so beyond, far beyond clothing.
And it changes the way you feel as well, which is super important.
Absolutely.
So when you wear our logo, it's like you're representing like a movement or a way of living.
Absolutely. It's all about evoking an emotion.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Man.
And so with all this different value-based content, it's like if you can create a reaction in a customer where it actually stirs something inside of them emotionally, you know, that's going to create a massive impact in their lives, and it's only going to do wonders for the brand.
And the crazy thing is as well, and we always, you know, sometimes we have some internal conflicts about this as well, about the long tail versus the short tail, because a lot of what you're talking about, I'm 100% behind, and obviously that's why you and me have
it can be too much, though.
Yeah, it can be too much, and also we've been stung with that as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's sometimes very difficult to quantify everything what you're saying, and actually for it to be justified that it's actually working and shifting the needle. How do you do that? How do you know if what you're doing is actually working? Because sometimes we can do these amazing campaigns, we can spend hundreds of hours and a lot of thousands of dollars on this podcast, but how do you actually know that it's actually going to be working, or eventually? Because at the end of the day, it's like we're a business, we need to be profitable, we need to make money. How do we know that eventually it's going to make money?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to balance, right? It's like you can't just put all your eggs in that one basket. And so you have to have, you know, obviously we all see, and it depends on the people who are running the show, you know, do they have a belief in this this way that we're doing it,
For sure.
you know, in the long tail. And if they have that, you've got to be able to have people that buy into what you're doing. But then on the flip side of that, you also have to have somebody else, like our ops manager, who can come look at what we're doing and say, okay, that's cool, creating all this long tail value-based content, but how, you know, what are the strategies that we're ensuring in the short term are going to be keeping us afloat?
Yeah, it's going to be the bridge
revenue.
between now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's really hard to find that balance. But I think the environment and who you have in the team is probably the most important part of that. But not everything has an ROI. I agree. Gary Vee says, you know, what's the ROI of your mother? You know, some things are just hard to measure. But
essentially, like at the end of a day, or at the end of a quarter of a year, like the aim of the game is to grow.
There are a whole bunch of metrics.
Whole bunch of metrics.
And you just have to have your finger on the pulse, really. Like as leading the digital team, it's like every single interaction that our customer has on every single platform, we need to be reviewing that. As much deep detail as we possibly can on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on our website, on Google Analytics, on every single platform that tracks any single metric, because, you know, we put a lot of not all the eggs, but we put a lot of eggs in this basket of this long tail adding value. And so, you know, it's my job to literally come up with metrics that do indicate, they might not be perfect, but they will indicate, you know, this is helping our bottom line. You know, this is increasing revenue.
Definitely.
This is building acquisition into the company. And so, it's tough, but you can get there, and it's all about how deep you want to go in the tracking.
I agree. It's so fascinating, even for listeners, just to even just kind of talking about this with you as well. Just the amount of time and how in depth we need to go once the garments are in. I think we're foolish to think that once you've got it, just put a photo on Instagram and
there's so
hope
much
to God
to it.
But it's actually not. A lot of the decisions we make, both in our marketing and our product, are dictated from data, the way people are engaging with it, what people are looking at, and what people are buying. And I think it's also like a real foundation of everything we do is the data part.
And it all comes back to, you've got to have all that data there, you've got to be looking at it, but then you've also got to be measuring how strong the correlation is of all those metrics to increasing the most important part, which is revenue for the business.
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely. Yeah, cool, man. So that's basically a bit of a wrap up of the process from start to finish. Is there anything else?
Not on my end.
On my end, but basically, just for listeners as well, is what me and Will are talking about here. We're doing at any given time. There's 6 different collections that are at 6 different stages of the process. We're doing this.
It's hectic.
It's very hectic. So, but yeah, man, that was cool. That was fun. It's always good to kind of look at it because I'm already thinking about a whole bunch of things which we can improve on. So.
Oh, absolutely. The list never stops.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and found any type of value, please subscribe to our podcast, share with your friends, and give us a 5-star review on iTunes to be in the draw to win a $200 I Love Ugly gift voucher. We will be drawing a winner monthly. Good luck and see you on the next episode.